Okay, we're now at the part of the markdown videos where I want to talk a little bit about customization. You can customize the output from your R markdown document by playing around with the YAML header. The YAML header, just to remind you, is this bit up the top in between the three hyphens on either side. YAML, for whatever it's worth, was originally called was given that acronym because it was yet another markup language, and then later changed to YAML ain't markup language. It doesn't matter, everybody just calls it YAML and ignores whatever it's supposed to stand for. Okay, our YAML header so far has looked like this. It's got these three things, so title, author, and date. That is information that actually appears in our document, but is also used to specify things like metadata, which are used for various purposes in the document. But then you've got stuff like this output, which this text doesn't appear in the document. What it actually does is specify what kind of document to create. So I could, for example, change that to a PDF and see what it does. We'll do that. I'll click knit and yay, PDF. So that's the really nice thing about having our markdown set up the way that it is, that you just write the bits of text that you want, and then you just change the output format, you get different types of documents. Yay! That's what we would hope for anyway. Something I want to call attention to though is that every now and then when you're playing with things, you might find documents that have something like this. This looks like it should create a PDF document and an HTML document, which is not quite true. I will try and show this to you by we'll have our PDF document default, and then above it we'll go HTML document. Now you may have a couple of questions while I'm doing this, like why do I have to put the default thing in there now when I didn't before? And mostly the answer is because YAML is a pain. You just do. It's irritating. So now what you would expect is it should create both an HTML document and a PDF document. So to see what actually happens, first thing, I'll just delete my PDF. So now I've got no output from this RMD file, and I'll go click like that, click knit, and it gives me my HTML. But as you can see, there's no PDF here. What R markdown actually does is just do whichever one comes first. So if I click on knit and I go knit to PDF, watch what it does to these two lines. It's going to reverse them as it tries to. So if I go like this, knit to PDF, you can see that PDF document got moved to the top, and now it created PDF. So it's kind of slightly misleading, but kind of useful at least to know what's going on, because you, like me, might find that really confusing if you run into it. Okay, so let's say we've got our document in this format and we're creating HTML outputs, but we don't like the formatting. What we can do, when I remember what I'm doing, is I already did the demonstration, so I'm just skipping it. What we can do is change the theme information. So the theme is part of what we want to write for our HTML document. So we're going to talk about what theme applies to an HTML output. So we go back to our document and we go under like this, and being clever and not making mistakes the way that we always do, we remember to indent, and then we go theme readable, and we save and go knit, and it should create a nice error. What did I do wrong? What I did wrong is not delete the default now. What the default part means is just say, when you create the HTML document, use all the default settings. But we're not using the default settings anymore. What we're actually doing is specifying the theme. So you have to delete that part and then have it say theme readable underneath. Right? So we now, when I try to knit, it will create something that has a different style. So now you can see that all of the underlying theming has been different. The text is now in serif rather than sans serif, etc., etc. And there are lots of different themes that you can apply. So I'll go back to my slides if I can remember where they are, because I'm totally on top of things. Yes. There are quite a lot of different themes that come with RStudio by default. So there's the default one, which we've already seen. There's readable, which I've shown you. But there are all of these other ones that you can play around with if you like. So if you want to find out what the Darkly theme looks like, or Space Lab, have at it. Go and play with it yourself and see what each of those themes looks like. That's the main thing I wanted to point out with these demonstrations that I've actually been doing on the fly. One of the things that I did want to do, I'm just going to go back a couple of slides because this is a thing I wanted to point out. YAML is really picky. It's picky about indentation, so if you don't get the spaces right, it complains. But it's also picky about whether or when you include things and when you don't. So anything that has sub items shouldn't have anything on the left, on the right hand side of the colon. YAML is a pain. One of the things I want to get across to you is that you have to play around with it a bit, be willing to make errors, and most importantly, be willing to Google when things go wrong, because the YAML header is quite finicky. Okay, back to where I was. I want to customize my HTML document in other ways too. I might want to give it a table of contents and have that table of contents float. So let's have a look at that. Let's go back to our document. And to make this fun, we should have some headings, subheadings. So I have some things in here which might be the kind of thing you expect to see in a table of contents, right? So a table of contents should list all of the headings of the document. So let's go talk true. I believe that's what I was doing. I'm so uncomfortable with this, I'm going to go back and check my slides. Yes, that was what I was supposed to do. And we'll go talk float true as well. So talk float flowed? No. Float true. Save that. And now we'll go knit. And we have, I hope, yay! Okay, so we have here our document, and we have some headings. So you can see that you can click on them and you get all of the subheadings appear when you do it, which is kind of neat. One thing that's not so obvious unless I change, let's just make the window nice and small so that the document now actually flows over. I don't know why my screen is being such a pain. Please stop. Great. Okay, if I scroll down, notice that I can scroll the document. Wow, this is really irritating. I apologize. But ignoring the flashing thing at the bottom, notice that the heading stays there. That's what the table of contents on the left stays visible. That's what I mean by a floating table of contents. So floating tables will stay visible, and I'm going to get rid of that. The ones that don't float will disappear as you scroll up with the document. Okay. So that's all I wanted to say there. Demonstration is done. Now it's one of those, go do it yourself. Practice editing the YAML header, try creating different outputs and themes, try creating a floating table of contents, and try to get it to not float. So play around with those things, get a sense of how the YAML header works, and if you happen to be fortunate enough not to make any errors on your own, try deliberately making some errors just to get a feel for how finicky YAML is. And I will leave this one there and stop.